And we are live, alright? This is going to be my review of a comic book I picked up a while ago, but I hadn't gotten to reading until just now, basically. This is Labyrinth, Jim Henson's Labyrinth, Coronation. It says, you have 13 hours in which to solve the labyrinth. So says David Bowie. Um, One thing I think is odd is how he looks different on the cover than he does in the comics. In this, they made him look a lot more like David Bowie himself. They gave him David Bowie's facial features. In the comic, let me find a good picture. Yeah, in the comic, though, he looks more cartoony. I don't want to say cartoony exactly, but you know what I mean. He looks like a comic book character. He has the pointed chin and everything. But you still know who he's supposed to be, so that's okay. I did not have very high expectations for this comic. In fact, I thought it was going to be low-level garbage. But it is actually pretty good, you know. This is number 1. This is a variant cover, the fried pie variant. What company came out with this? Archaea? Archaea? I don't think I've ever heard of that company. But, little backstory with Labyrinth. Of course, most of you probably know Jim Henson's Labyrinth, a movie he made in collaboration with George Lucas, who did Star Wars. Is my finger covering the speaker? Anyway, it's a classic. It's either a cult classic or a classic. I can't quite remember, but I saw it when I was really little, and I've seen it quite a few times. Very impressive puppet work. Very, very obvious moments of primitive special effects with the green screen, but very impressive puppet work. Very good performance by David Bowie as Jareth, the Goblin King. Good music. It's all around a pretty good, was it 80s movie? Speaking of primitive special effects, I just remembered that CGI owl in the beginning of the movie. Huh. Wow. CGI in the 80s was on another level. But I can't recall, though, that there was much lore to it. In fact, I'm pretty sure there was not much lore to Labyrinth at all. It did take place in a fantasy world that was full of secrets and had a lot of unique characters and a lot of unique settings, like the labyrinth itself and the city at the center of the labyrinth, the city of the goblins, where I believe Jareth's throne room was. But not much backstory and not too many dimensions are given to these things. They're mostly just kind of there. Character motivations are pretty much set up on the spot. Things happen as the movie goes along, you don't really need to dig too deep to just get the story. So it's kind of shallow, whereas lore is involved. Because there is a lot of stuff that seems like it should have a lot of lore, but it just doesn't. It's just kind of there. And so that I do like the movie, but that's always just felt a little odd to me. Dark Crystal. Dark Crystal was another Jim Henson movie around the same time, I believe. But it had the opposite problem. Not that Labyrinth had any movie-destroying problems. It's still a good movie. But Dark Crystal had the opposite problem, where there was too much lore. They were trying to cram too much information into one movie. And that ultimately ended up being its downfall. It didn't really have lore, it just had confusion. Although, from what I hear, the supplementary materials, the comic books, hopefully the Netflix series that's coming out, has it already come out? I feel like I haven't heard anything of it for a long time. But the Netflix series, I hope it's good. From what I've heard, the comics, all the comic series are really good. And they solve a lot of the issues the movie had. By actually taking time to expand upon the characters and explain the world, instead of just throwing it all in there. Which brings me to this comic book. Labyrinth, Coronation. This is a comic about Jareth. This is a lore comic. It expands upon the lore that was missing in the movie. In this, it picks up at a moment in the movie where Jareth is just spying on, what's her name? It's been a while since I've seen the movie. As she's going through the labyrinth. And one of these goblins like, she's not gonna give up. To which Jareth is like, shut up, you pathetic little ingrate. Pretty much. He doesn't really say it like that. He gives this kind of suave, condescending sarcasm, you know? But later, that goblin's just trying to sneak out, and Jareth catches up to him and starts intimidating him. He's like, dude, I told you to watch the baby. And the goblin, Beetleglum, there's a running gag in this comic where Jareth keeps calling him by the wrong name, like Beetlegorm or Beetledung. But Beetleglum is like, the kid was sleeping, and I thought there would be a sing-along in the throne room. So I left him there. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. Jareth is like, and I quote, he's not sleeping now. Here, hand him over. He has a lot to learn of the goblin way. As it seems, so do some of my servants. So he's like, goblins care more for tales than truths. And you shall have a story. The story of an unvanquished heart. And this is where our real story begins. It's about Jareth telling the baby a story. So he tells... So the story starts up in Venice. The Republic of Venice, 1797. At a masquerade ball. I don't want to show too much so I don't get copyright struck. But, so there's this count and countess who are in love. And you've noticed the count, he looks a lot like Jareth. And that's on purpose. For symbolism. But spoilers, this is the backstory of Jareth. So this count named Albert Titan and his wife Maria are in Venice at a ball, but all of a sudden the constables start asking around for him, and he starts getting all paranoid. And he says he's going to go leave some wine. He really just goes to, like, a separate room that's dark and everything. And here we see it. Albert, is being haunted, taunted, plagued by the goblins, who are all like, he has such lovely hair. Shh, he's listening. Such a regal profile. The jaw of an emperor. And he's like, a king. We need a king. Just make the wish, and the crown is his. So you can see where this is going right away. It looks like Albert is going to be Jareth. It goes on and explains, Maria's like, is it the visions again? Are you seeing the monsters again? And he's like, nah, that was just food poisoning in Athens. That's not a thing anymore. But he's still paranoid about the stuff that's going on. Later, Maria tries to go to their home, but it's guarded by, this dude. The generic bad guy looking dude. And he's like, all the downstairs folks have been fired. Orders of Lord Titan. She's like, Lord Titan is my husband, sir, though in this city he will thank you to address him as Il Comte. Forgive my pronunciation, I do not speak Italian. And he's like, walk away or I'll break your neck. She sneaks into the house through the window, where Albert is packing his things, and he's like, look, the constables are asking for us. Napoleon is marching his French army on Venice. I gotta go. I cannot be here. I gotta go back home to London, and you cannot come with me. And she's like, why? And he's like, you know why. I'll actually just quote what he says here. You know very well what I mean, you silly girl. We both know you're no countess. And he apologizes, but it's explained that... Oh, wow. Forget you saw that. It's explained that... oh, wow, my collar. It's explained that Maria is not a countess at all. She was actually a linen maid. A taverna linen maid. I guess that means she worked in a tavern. And they fell in love and got married. Albert is from a noble family. And if you know anything about noble families in the 1700s in Europe, I'm not going to generalize and say all of them, but they generally could be some of the most inhumanely cruel people on the face of the earth. They had nothing but contempt for anyone who wasn't also an aristocratic family. You've seen Romeo and Juliet. You know how petty and how serious they take frivolous things. You've seen how petty they can be. You've seen how serious they take frivolous things that shouldn't matter. And you see if they think their name is going to be sullied by their son marrying a commoner, they're not only going to disown him, they're not only going to make sure that that family cannot find good work in the entire land, but they're also probably going to kill them all as well. And here's a little look at Maria without the wig. She's a redhead. And he's like, Albert is like, my father. He finds out about this. Venice was the last place we could go. And now even that is falling through. It's like, we've had our fun. We've played at marriage. We've lived our lonely lie as Count and Countess. And now it's over. And then Maria drops the bombshell. If it's over, what about our child? Uh-oh. So yes, Albert and Maria are full-grown adults. They're full-grown adults. They're already married, and they already have begun raising a child of their own. Now, in today's society, that would be seen as okay. Normal, maybe even good. It would even be considered a good thing by a lot of people. It's seen as a respectable, not just respectable, but expected independence from adults of their age. I'm guessing they're like near their 30s. But again, this was 1700s Europe. A noble family is involved. So that complicates things drastically. And then Jareth is like, and who do you suppose that child might have been? Oh, you can't see it. Yeah, he says, who do you suppose that child may have been? And the goblin's like, was it you? And he's like, I never said it was. Okay, the goblin, Beetleglum, is like, but if that baby was you, Jareth says, I never said it was. Beetleglum is like, but if it was, then don't we already know how this story ends? Jareth puts on his comic book supervillain face and says, "The child's kin is trying to save him badly, stupidly, arrogantly, but still trying. You think it's irrelevant to consider the precedents?" And Beetleglum's like, no, Jareth is like, good, because the baby is not the full story. Sometimes a child's just a thing. What it grows up to become or not become isn't the point. The real story belongs to those who love it. So then we pick up back with Maria and Albert. And Albert's like, you'll go to the orphanage. He cannot stay with you because of the risk of blackmail. And then he literally goes, "My man Lorenzo." That's literally what he says. Wow, I'm having a hard time putting that on. It's like, yo, my man Lorenzo will take care of it. But, and he's like, "I'll make a generous donation to the orphanage. He'll be well taken care of." And she's like, "You can't even say his name. That thug will throw him in the canal the moment your back's turned, and you know it." So at this point, Albert starts to break. He gives a bit of a sob. And then he turns on her. He blames it on her. He's like, "This is your fault. Your fault for entrapping me." Sorry if that triggered anyone. That, he's throwing... He's not holding himself very well. He's starting to break. And he's like, "Your fault for being naive enough to believe this. You should have known it couldn't last. You bore the child, not me." That's gotta hit close to home for some people. He's like, "It was just a dream, Maria. A stupid dream. You're tearing me apart, Maria." So she makes the decision to smack him and then run off. She says, "You fear scandal, Albert Titan. Fear shame. You will have them and more. You will suffer for this. I won't let us forget. I won't let you forget us, you coward." Then she runs off past the guard man, and Albert's like, "Stop her! She's an imposter! Stop her!" So she's running, and the guy in the black coat is chasing her with a knife. Albert is by the fire, contemplating what just happened, and he's like, "I'm not a bad person. The name, the family, it has to come first." I'm like, "Boy, that was your family." And the goblins creep back up, and they're like, "Albert, make the wish. Albert, make the wish." So, And he's like, you have nothing to offer me. I am a lord. I'm rich. I have leisure. I have power. But, but, and you can see, because this comic gets darker than the movie ever did, I believe. Let me try to get it in some good light. There we are. You can kind of see the goblins now are chasing Maria and the baby. And Maria is even like, who's there? But finally, Albert says, I wish you to take my son. And so they do. And so she is taken. Her and the baby are taken to the Labyrinth, where I assume this is the old Goblin King. He's like, I cannot abide trespassers. The boy, please. And she's like, no, stop. And he's like, get out. So yeah, I guess that's the Goblin King before Jareth. And he actually it looks like he actually is a goblin. But this explains why Jareth, King of the Goblins, looked human in the movie. Because he was. But, and then she's back in the human world. She gets up out of the water and she's like, my baby! My baby! And Jareth is like, and then Jareth, talking to the baby, is all like, she'll never give up. And to be continued. This is issue 1. I don't know how many issues there are. I just kind of found this with, like, the back issues at Books A Million. I don't think they had any others. This didn't even have a price tag. At first, they were going to ring this up as, like, $18, and they were like... And then they were like, that can't be right. So that's kind of weird. Kind of a weird story of getting this comic. Overall, I really liked this comic. Way more than I thought I would. If you're a fan of Labyrinth and you feel like Jareth should have a bit more fleshing out, or if you wanted some more lore to the story, then this is the comic to get. I'd recommend it. Or even if you've never seen Labyrinth, you could still read this comic and it may pique your interest. Overall, I'd say I give it like an 8 out of 10. Let me rephrase that. Okay. I'm not going by any standardized rating. For me, I'd say 5 would be normal. There's nothing particularly good about it, nothing particularly bad, it's just run-of-the-mill. 6 would be, it's okay, you know. There's more good in it than bad, but it's not very good, but it's still all right. You may find some fun in it. 7 would be a solid, it is good. 8 would be, it is very good. 9 would be, it is great. You cannot pass this up. And 10 would be masterpiece. What am I doing with my hand there? A masterpiece. Okay, forget the hand gestures. You know what I'm trying to do. And I'd give this an 8. It is very good. And with that, this video is way too long. I had things to do. I still have things to do. So I hope you all found this review useful. Maybe you didn't even know that there was a Labyrinth comic. I sure didn't. And maybe you'll give it a chance. You'll probably really, really like it if you're a Jim Henson fan. And with that, I am out. See you later.